Okay, thank you. Welcome to our Tuesday Torah class. If you're watching online on YouTube or Facebook, welcome. And those of you on Zoom. So let me open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you that we can look into your word. Father, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, Father, discernment and understanding into your word. Pray this in Yeshua's name. Amen. So last week, we didn't quite finish chapter 18. We read up through 23. So we got through what all these sins were. So we'll just read the last few verses, which is the final exhortation of chapter 18. Verse 24, defile not yourselves in any of these things, all the aforementioned things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you, and the land is defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomits out her inhabitants. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nation, or any stranger that sojourns. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. If the land spew not you out also, when you defile, as it spewed out the nations that were before you. For whosoever commits any of these abominations, even the souls that commit them, shall be cut off from among their people. Therefore shall you keep my ordinances, that ye commit not any of these abominable customs, which were committed before you, that you defile yourselves not. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. So all these sexual sins that we read about, which the nations were committing, these are the things that got them kicked out of the land. And it says the land vomited them out. So Israel, in turn, they're going to take control of the land. But the warning for them is, and for us too, that if we live like this, the land will vomit us out too. So on an individual basis, sexual sin will defile a person. Say in the case of adultery, there's really no sacrifice in this time. That would be the punishment would be death. Now, when you get a whole land full of people who are committing these abominations, eventually the land can only take so much, as the sanctuary can only take so much, as Yahweh himself can only take so much. And eventually, it says the land is going to vomit them out. And so we have seen that happen to the nation of Israel. As we're reading through the prophets on Shabbat, they're in a precarious situation where they're about to get vomited out of the land. And that's exactly what happened to them. So when I want to read this one scripture here, Deuteronomy, which talks about how sexual sin affects the land. This is Deuteronomy 24, 1 through 4. When a man has taken a wife and married her, and it comes to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he has found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement, give it into her hand, and send her out of the house. And when she is departed out of the house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, write her a bill of divorce and give it in her hand, and sends her out of the house. Or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife. After that, she is defiled, for that is an abomination before Yahweh, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which Yahweh thy Elohim gives thee for inheritance. So it's actually talking about how these sexual sins actually cause the land to sin. Leviticus. So the land, we hear a lot that we talk about Israel as the Holy Land, but the reality is it's really not holy. If you search through the Bible, you won't find any phrase that refers to Israel as the Holy Land, because it's been more defiled than anything. And even now, I believe the land won't truly be clean until Yeshua returns. So, any comments as we close on chapter 18 here? Otherwise, I'm going to go to 19. So, chapter 19. This is the center chapter in all of Leviticus, and even in all of the Torah even. This is what they call the holiness chapter, where everything kind of comes together. Everything before leads up to this point. And then as we're moving away from Leviticus 19, there is a chiastic structure that forms in the book, throughout the book of Leviticus, that actually extends into Exodus and Numbers. I made an outline here. Can you all see that? So this outline I got from Jacob Milgram. It's just a very straightforward outline that just details everything that happens. There's 18 units, including a heading and a closing exhortation. So the heading starts up in verse 1 and 2, be holy because I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am holy. Unit 1, verse 3 is actually the commandments 5 and 4 in reverse order. And then it closes with, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Unit 2, verse 4 is commandment 1 and 2. And it closes with, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Unit 3, verses 5 through 8, talks about the peace offering and how you're not supposed to eat the peace offering. You can eat it on the first and second day, but not eating it on the third day. Unit 4, verse 9 through 10, horticultural holiness and required gifts to the poor and alien. And it closes, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. You notice that this I am Yahweh, your Elohim does not occur after Unit 3 there. And we'll get to that in a moment. Unit 5, verse 11 and 12, well, the whole unit talks about deeds. Verse 11 and 12 talks about furtive deeds, deeds done in secret. Verse 13 talks about unfurtive deeds, deeds that are done out in the open. And now he switches to I am Yahweh. I notice it is after verse 11 and 12. And we'll see in a moment why that is. Unit 6, verse 14 is the exploitation of the helpless. Closes with I am Yahweh. Unit 7, verses 15, 16, injustice and indifference. I am Yahweh. Unit 8, verse 17 and 18, reproof and love. I am Yahweh. So you notice there are 4 places where it says, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. With the heading, it's a bit of a worded a little different. And then the next 4, I am Yahweh. Unit 9, verse 19 talks about mixtures. Unit 10, verse 20, 22, the betrothed slave woman. Unit 11, verse 23, 25, horticultural holiness continued. And then for these 3 units, he closes with, I am Yahweh your Elohim. Well, I think that's in error. I think the your Elohim should not be in there. Let me check for sure. Verse 19 and 25. Yeah, it's just, oh, it is it? I am Yahweh your Elohim. So I got it right. Unit 12, verse 26, 28 is chewing death and the dead. I am Yahweh. Unit 13, verse 29, making your daughter a prostitute. Unit 14, verse 30, Sabbaths and sanctuary. I am Yahweh. Unit 15, verse 31, consulting the dead. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Unit 16, verse 32, respect for elders. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Unit 17, verse 33, 34, the resident alien. I am Yahweh your Elohim. And the last one, Unit 18, verse 35, 36, business ethics. I am Yahweh your Elohim. And this time he adds, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And then the closing exhortation in verse 37, observe all statutes and rules. Do them. I am Yahweh. So this is a rather straightforward outline of the chapter. So I wanted to show you this one. I got this outline from a website called haver.com. This was written by a man named Moshe Klein in an article called The Editor Must Have Been Nodding, which is an interesting title. But he kind of broke this down a little bit differently. So the way this is broken down is you have 2 columns here, here. So the left column, everything that's L, deal with religious or private matters. Verse 1 through 10, then 26 through 31. Part 3 is actually the middle that would go between 1 and 2. And the left deals with religious private matters. On the right side, you have ethical, social issues, verse 11 through 18, and he actually includes 19a. We shall guard my statutes, and then 32 through 37. So 19a and 37 kind of work as code is for part 1 and part 37. And then in the middle part, 23, 24, 25. So the middle of part 3, and I have to tell Deborah and Lisa, Donnie, I made a mistake here with this middle. I had these verses wrong. I don't remember what I had. Where it says 20, 21, 22. You might want to change that because I sent this to them. So I'm going to read this first part here, verses 1 through 19a, and then we'll look at part 1 in more detail. So I have part 1 here that's kind of broken out in more detail. But let's read this first. 1 through 19, right here. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, Ye shall be holy, for I, Yahweh your Elohim, am holy. Ye shall fear every man his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Turn ye not unto idols, nor make to yourselves molten gods. I am Yahweh your Elohim. If ye offer a sacrifice of peace offering unto Yahweh, ye shall offer it at your own will. It shall be eaten on the same day ye offer it, and on the morrow, and if aught remain until the third day, it shall be burnt in the fire. And if it be eaten at all on the third day, it is abominable. It shall not be accepted. Therefore, everyone that eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned the hollow things of Yahweh. And that soul shall be cut off from among his people. And when ye reap the harvest of the land, ye shall not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of the harvest. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahweh your Elohim. You shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie to one another. You shall not swear by thy name falsely, neither shalt thou profane the name of Yahweh, of thy God. I am Yahweh. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning. Thou shalt not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but shalt fear thy Elohim. I am Yahweh. If ye do no unrighteousness, ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor. Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am Yahweh. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor. Some versions say reprove or reason with, and not suffer sin upon him. And also some versions say, so sin doesn't suffer upon yourself. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahweh. You shall keep my statutes. So the way this is broken down is here. So after each of these, he breaks it down into a row A, B, C, and D. So after each row, at the end of the A, he'll say, I, Yahweh, your Elohim. I, Yahweh, your Elohim. I, Yahweh, Elohim. So he says that each time after the end. So that's kind of how he broke it down. Milgram split this one into 2, 5 and 8, and then 9 and 10 as 2 separate units. Likewise, they added 13 to 12. These 4 will end with the closing I am Yahweh after each one. So,
Mike,
yeah,
so I was contemplating this, like you were talking about this Leviticus 19, the holiness code. But it's been called, it's that the people of Israel, they, as a whole, they bear the collective responsibility to seek to achieve holiness collectively.
right.
Like it says in verse 2, you shall be holy because I am holy. So the idea is really encountered in the rest of Leviticus. It's stated repeatedly and emphatically. And I wanted to mention this. Let me pull this up. So so it says, to have a close relationship to God, the people must emulate God. What I like about what's happening at Living Messiah is collectively as a people, both here and those abroad, not just the people here in Mesa or Phoenix, but the people abroad that are watching and studying with us, we're collectively moving towards being a holy people. And this is where the whole idea is, you collectively are the temple, because the temple has to be holy. So we are collectively moving to that part, and God is opening up understanding and wisdom just amazingly. So I'm very thankful and very appreciative that everyone gets on and joins and studies, because this is what we're moving to. God himself is doing that to us because we have a heart to want to move that way.
Amen. So getting back to this here, as I told you, this left column deals with religious or private matters. Basically, it's our relationship to the Father. The right column deals with our relationships with each other. So the way this is broken down, it starts out saying, "Be holy as Yahweh is holy, because I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am holy." But as it goes down this list, the progression becomes a little bit less. Row B, it says, "Honor your mother and father, keep the Sabbaths." So this is actually an inversion of commandment 5 and 4. They're in reverse order. And even commandment 5 is in reverse order, because usually, I know before I actually sat down and studied this, my mind would just always say, for this verse, honor your father and mother. But if you read the verse, it says, honor your mother and father. So it's a total inversion. And the reason for that is because he wants to show that mother and father are in equal terms, as far as you don't fear one over the other. You need to fear both your parents on an equal basis. So in the second commandment, it does say, honor your father and mother, but he's reversed the order here. And keep the Sabbaths.
It has it reversed in the Septuagint. Septuagint's father and mother.
In Leviticus 19.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't think they should have done it. Or I don't know.
And
We're not gonna put the mother before the father.
well, the Targum has mother, father, but the Septuagint has it father, mother.
Yeah. Well, I believe in the Hebrew Bible, it is mother, father.
Yeah, because the Hebrew Bible is off the Masoretic.
Yeah. So
which
you're
is-
right. It could be the Septuagint is correct, because I mean, there's other things that they're correct about it.
And you would probably presume that the Targum and the Masoretic are all probably after the destruction of the temple, and things changed a little bit. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's saying the same message. It's whether, one's before the other. I don't know if the significance of it, but
Is commandment 5 is before 4 in the Septuagint, all right?
say again.
Commandment 5 is before commandment 4 in the Septuagint. Is that the case? Here it says, honor your mother and father. That's commandment 5, and then keep the Sabbath.
Yes.
Okay. Letter C, turn not to idols, which is actually part of the first commandment, and do not make molten images, which is part of the third commandment. 5 through 10 talks about the peace offering. You don't eat it. You can eat it on the first and the second day, but on the third day, you cannot eat it. Anyone who does shall bear his iniquity because he profanes the holy things of Yahweh. Now,
Question?
this one, somebody had a question?
Yeah, so this is talking about the priest, or does everybody participate in this ability to eat
Well, I
this?
think this is everybody.
Yeah, it starts off in verse 2, speak to the whole congregation.
Well, I know, but this, where he's talking about who could violate, because a lot of the time the
Everyone's
sacrifices goes to the priest.
Well, peace
but-
offering is for the offerer. That's the one sacrifice that he can eat.
Okay.
So all of these are inclusive, because we were talking about last week how we're moving into we've moved away from the ritual impurities. Now we're in the moral, or the moral impurities. So this is dealing with morality. So this, now, he put these together for I assume the reason that this phrase, I am Yahweh your Elohim, is inclusive of all these verses, although they're kind of split, because 5 through 8 does deal with the private religious matters. The part where you don't reap the corners of your field or gather gleanings, and you leave it for the sojourner or the poor person, that's moving towards this side, to the right side, where it's your relationship with people. So in there 11 and 12, this talks about the deeds: don't steal, don't lie, don't swear falsely so as to profane the name. 13, don't oppress your neighbor. Although I left anything about verse 14 in here, don't put a stumbling block before the blind, or curse a poor person, or a deaf person. That should be included in there too. Do no unrighteous judgment. Do not respect the poor. Favor the mighty. Don't be a talebearer. Do not stand idly by the blood of thy neighbor.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So you're saying, and I probably missed something, but you're saying that these are correlated values. So like column L is correlated with column R on the other side. It's just that one is like the religious vertical sort of relationship, and then the other is
There is a relationship going across, we can get to later. Sometimes
Okay.
it's a little vague, but
because I'm finding that so interesting. If there's a relationship across, then a correlation
it's
a
not
row.
as apparent as the column relationship. So when you get to the last one here, do not hate your brother in your heart. Don't be vengeful, bear a grudge. This one actually goes from love, or from hate to love. So if you look at these, if you start in A here, you start out holy, and it gets a little progressively worse to whereby you get to D, where the person is profaning the holy things of Yahweh. And then if you come up here, it repeats the phrase, don't swear falsely by the name so as to profane the name. So on this column, it gets progressively better, to the point where we get to the last verse, love your neighbor as yourself, which to me really is the central verse in all of Leviticus. And Yeshua calls it the second greatest command. You could say that this one is the first, because if you're holy as Yahweh is holy, you're going to love him with your whole heart, your whole soul, and with all your might, right? So we basically have the first commandment and the second commandment. But in the meantime, it descends to the place where the person is profaning the holy things. Here he's profaning the holy things. Here he's profaning the name. It's kind of like a descent into the pit. When you're in the pit, now you're restored coming out of the pit. Any questions?
And you will be talking about the relationship in the rows, right? The correlation between,
Well, this is what I know, because it was kind of hard to understand. I mean, I went through this article. It's a very long article. It's about 59 pages long. And he breaks all this stuff down. The way this is kind of tied together is the word holy, kadesh, and the word falsely, shakar. So they're basically opposites. Holiness relates to Amet, truthfulness, truth and shakar, Emet and shakar. So they're bound together by, that opposite to each other. These two are bound. Honor your father and mother is the word. Honor is actually the word yireh here. The end verse, I don't have it in here, is actually what verse was that? 14, right? Thou shalt fear thy Elohim. So fear is also that word yireh. And also up here. What's that click here? Well, it does use the word fear here. Yehu. So that is kind of the for this particular one. This one deals with kind of public and private issue. So when you turn to idols, I think that's a private issue, like you're not telling anybody. But if you're out making idols, people seeing what you're doing out in the open. Likewise, doing unrighteous judgment, not respecting the poor, you're kind of doing it secretly on the down low. But if you're a talebearer, you stand by idly by the blood of a neighbor, that's kind of out in the open. Number D, I couldn't quite understand that one, so that one's a tough one. But he does add this verse, you shall keep my statutes. Although it is part of verse 19, he uses it as a closing for this whole section. So does that make sense to everybody?
I have a question before you move on.
Okay.
Actually, it's a comment where you went back to Leviticus 19:18. Love thy neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
If you look in Matthew 22:39, where Yeshua says, and the second is like it, you shall love your neighbors as yourself. But then the next verse says, on these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets, all the Torah and the prophets.
Yeah.
So you can't just stop there, right? So I look at that
Right.
I look at that as like, you got the 10 commandments, and it's kind of like how this guy's doing here, where you've got your relationship with Yehovah on the one side, and then your relationship with your neighbor and your brothers and whatever, the people on the other side. And he's saying those which the two commandments that are mentioned are all the relationships you have. You either have it with Yahweh or you have it with man. And
right,
all the Torah and the prophets hang on those two things. You don't
Right.
get to choose which one of those you don't want and ones you don't want. All of them.
so if you're doing all these, then you're doing this. If you're doing all these, I mean, the opposite, the do not, or the do part, not the do not, then you're doing this. You're loving your neighbor as yourself. So also about these lists, all these, they all start out with do not. That's the Hebrew word lo. Do not steal, do not lie, do not oppress, do not do unrighteousness, do not hate, do not bear a grudge, do not seek vengeance. All of these are more proactive. So
So
let
I'm
me,
wondering, just a thought, with all these chiastic structures, and
Yeah.
then what Mark talked about on Shabbat, and the main part of the chiastic structure was that he may establish his people and be our God. And then in chapter 18, it was talking about how all these abominations on the land suffered. But
Right.
then conversely, as we become more holy and we seek after his ways, I wonder if the land will become more cleansed, at least in the areas where his people are gathering together and
right.
working out his laws and statutes. I wonder if that's something that we might notice in our lifetime.
Well, I hope we notice it within our congregation and other congregations. The point that he's making, I think, is that all those sexual sins that we read about, those are the things that pollute the land. And when we have a society now where pretty much those things are happening on a larger scale than they did, 50 years ago, I think with the advent of the so-called, hey, is that the cat's indoors now? I think with it, when the 60s rolled around and they had all this sexual revolution stuff, it's pretty much been downhill since that point. Where now we're just seeing the fruits of what that has spawned. That's 50, 60 years ago that all this stuff started happening. So we're seeing cases where people are literally being vomited out of the land these days, what with floods and hurricanes and fires. We're actually seeing it happen in real time. So I don't know. But yeah, I believe you could have a plot of land whereby, like we have a plot of land down in Bisbee, and then we go to the trolley farm, which are, I believe, set apart places. If someone were to violate these rules by committing one of these grievous sins, they would have to be kicked off the land, that particular land, right? In Israel, when they were a nation, if people did these things, their punishment was they were cut off from their people. They were kicked out of the land. In some cases, they actually would die. There was no sacrifice that could cover such grievous sins, because the sacrificial system was only for the sins of unintentional types of sins, that kind of thing. or things you have no control over physically, saying that a woman giving birth or her menstrual cycle, those kinds of things. So. Any other comments? So I did make a linguistic parallel. This is for the first part. Oh, this is actually for the second part. We won't do this one now then. I'll go on to, do I have that open? Outline. I don't think I do. Let me get it open now. Part 2. So the parallel thing you saw here, this actually deals with the left-handed column, these left-handed columns with these left-handed columns. So we'll just, let me read this part here first in Leviticus 19. Actually starting in 26. So we're going to come back and read 19 through 25. That's the middle part. Verse 26. I'm going to jump here. Getting dry. Too much talking. Verse 26. You shall not eat anything with the blood, neither shall you use enchantment, nor observe times. That's an interesting way of putting it. I think other versions say soothsaying, that kind of thing. Enchantment, divination. You shall not wrap round the corners of your heads, neither shall you mar the corners of your beard. You shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh. When I read this here, making cuttings on flesh for the dead, I always think of the prophets of Baal who were trying to summon their gods when Elijah challenged them. 29, do not prostitute thy daughter to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom. Another case where sexual sin is leading to the defilement of the land, and the land become full of wickedness. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards, to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head, meaning a old man, the aged, and honor the face of the old man. Fear thy Elohim, I am Yahweh. And if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, you shall not vex him. But the stranger that dwells with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself. For ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. And you could probably see this is verse 18. This is a linguistic parallel. Both of them on the right side. Love your neighbor as yourself. Also love the sojourner as yourself. Verse 38. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. In meta yard, in weight, or in measure. Just balances, just weight, a just ephah, a just hin shall ye have. I am Yahweh your Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe my statutes, all my judgments, to do them. I am Yahweh. So in part 2, verses 26 through 28, don't eat anything with the blood. Do not practice divination or soothsaying, sorcery. Do not round off the edges of your head or beard, make gashes in the flesh for the dead, or tattoo yourself. I am Yahweh. Do not profane your daughter by making her a prostitute, lest the land fall into prostitution and be filled with depravity. Keep my statutes, my Sabbaths. Reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. Do not turn to mediums or necromancers, familiar spirits, to make yourselves unclean by them. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. So this left column will continue the theme of the religious matters, how we deal with our relationship with Yahweh by not doing these things. And they seem to gain momentum from the part 1. On the right side, rise before the age, honor the face of the old, fear your Elohim, I am Yahweh. Verse 33, 34. When a stranger sojourns with you, do him no wrong, treat the stranger as the native born, and shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in Egypt. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Verse 35, 36. Do no wrong in judgment, in measurements of length, weight, or quantity. Have a just balance, just weight, just ephah, just hin. I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Faithfully observe all my statutes and rules. Do them. I am Yahweh. So this section E is all one unit. It's basically divided 3 parts, divided 3 ways, or 2 parts divided 3 ways, or 3 parts divided 2 ways. So the way this is linked, it's linked this way. You have honor the face of the old. Once again, the word yireh. Reverence my Sabbaths. Yireh. Keep, observe, it's the same word. Shamar. So any questions, comments? Let me get a few of these linguistic parallels. So we have ELA, which links to DL. These are all in the left-hand column. You shall not eat. Lo toklu, it shall be eaten. Yea, can. So it's this word to eat. Aleph, Taf, Lamed. Side growth of the edges of your hair and your beard. The Persian said corners, but it is the Hebrew word edges. Hayat. And then you shall not reap up to the edge of your field. Same word, hayat. And then verse 28, for the dead. I believe that was make ashes in your flesh for the dead. And then that person, let's see, where was that? The oh, that person, that soul. So that, of course, is the word nefesh. Nefesh. The dead soul or just the living soul. In the ELV, keep my Sabbaths, reverence my sanctuary. With DL, actually the whole phrase is the same. Keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary and reverence mother and father. Tirau, tirau. Yeah. And then ELC relates to CL, do not turn to, let's see what it was. Oh, do not turn to mediums or necromancers. The other one was do not turn to idols. And that is the Hebrew word penu. Al tifnu. Al tifnu. Do not turn. Any questions or comments? Well, let me pull up the other one here.
Good stuff.
Thank you. On the right side.
Thanks for all the work that you put into it too.
Oh, you're welcome. So these are the linguistic parallels on the right side. We already covered this one. You shall love him, the sojourner, as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Ve'ahavta li kemoka. Ve'ahavta le're'acha kamoka. So not only as we to love our neighbor, so our neighbor, I guess in this case would be your fellow Israelite, but you're supposed to extend that love to the sojourner. So even those who are outside the fellowship and not believers, we're still to extend that love to those, as Yeshua said, I tell you, love your enemy also, right?
So basically, 15 says, in righteousness you shall judge, just like we talked about on Shabbat last week. God's always wanting us to be in righteous justice.
Right. So in ERA, you shall fear your Elohim. That's Yireh again. You shall fear your Elohim. Same phrase. Do no wrong in judgment. Do no injustice in court. And it's this word. Yesu Yavel. Avel. Yeah. Do wrong. Do injustice. It's interesting how this word Avel, that sounds like our English word evil. Do no evil.
Isn't that Cain and Abel? Isn't it Abel's name?
I believe it's spelled with a bet, is it?
Maybe.
I think. Pretty sure. Could be wrong. Verse 36, ERC, just balances, just weights, just ephah, just hin. That's the word zadak, zadek, And we're all pretty familiar with that word. In fact, Ryan just learned it last Shabbat, didn't you, Ryan? You learned what a tzedakah box is. In righteousness, okay, Zedek, so Zedek does mean righteous. And then I threw this one here. You shall keep my statutes, you shall observe all my statutes and rules. Et hu totai tishmoru. Tishmoru. I always like to sing that to the song Tish Lorraine by the B-52s. You ever heard that? Tishmoru.
I haven't heard that.
You've heard of the B-52s, I'm sure.
That I have.
They sing this song called Tish Lorraine. But when I hear Tishmoru, kind of sounds like that. Okay.
Can I say something about the word injustice there?
This one. Yes.
So I looked it up because I was curious. So, and Jeff Benner has it as related to a stain, actually, wicked, dark stain. Yeah.
Really? Well, it is a stain when you do injustice, right? That's interesting. Okay, well, we'll stop there. Next week we'll cover the we'll cover this part here, the middle part. Would anybody like to make any closing comments before we sign off?
I'm actually glad that you made that connection between the beard, the
Yeah.
edges of the beard and the edges of the crops, because I recently heard that there was a connection. But I mean, other than the edge, are they relatable at all? Like, what does the beard have to do with the crops and the edges? Does
Right,
anyone
it's
know?
just a linguistic parallel,
Okay.
but I find it interesting. You can when you find these parallels, they usually come in groups like this. You just have to find them, right? Because you don't really see them in the English. Because a lot of times in English, we use a different word. Like here, we use just, righteous, keep, and observe. It's the same word in Hebrew, but we come up with a different word in English. Sometimes they'll say the word reverence, or they'll say honor. Where do I see that? Honor your parents. There's no Hebrew word for parents, by the way, either. It's always father and mother, or mother and father together. That I know of. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe there is the modern Hebrew, but I don't know. Anyways, we'll close there. Because we're right about at 8 o'clock. And I believe Mark is going to move over. Are you moving over, Mark?
He already left.
Oh, I see Blair and Linda are here, though.
I'm wondering if we need to turn off so they can do
Yeah.
their.
Let me pray us out, and then we can close. Heavenly Father, thank you for the study tonight. We ask for your blessing, Father, as we go our way. We thank you so much for your word and all that there is for us to learn and to uncover into your word. We thank you so much. Pray this in Yeshua's name. Amen.